To the regularly scheduled Waterville Planning Board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good grief. Thank you. I can't see if we have anybody in the do we have people online too, Dave, or?
I'm not joined.
We do.
Oh, you're not okay. Thanks, Hillary. So those of you that are joining us from Zoom, those of you that are joining us from Zoom, if you can use the hand raise function at the I think it's at the bottom of your screen, and then we will let you in. There is like a little buffer of time in between, so just be patient, and you will come into the meeting eventually. So before we get started, I've been doing this for the past couple of meetings. I'd like to do it again. I want to acknowledge that this planning board meeting, at this planning board meeting, we are meeting on and discussing the traditional lands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, most specifically the Eastern Abenaki peoples, the historical custodians of this land in which we now live, known as Waterville. May we please pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So, with all of that, we have a very packed agenda tonight, so we're going to try to keep things moving. Okay. So, first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the April 26th meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, so, yep, Dave and then Tom, and we'll do a roll call. So, Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Cassie?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
And Bruce?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 2, disclosure of conflict of interest. Does any planning board members have a conflict on any of the votes that they might take tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3. Really moves along, Anne, when the first 2 items are easy, right? DWLLC is requesting an informal pre-application review for Reservoir Hill, a 28-lot subdivision off of Route 104 in Fairfield, with 1 lot on assessor parcel 7860 in Waterville. Is that you? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Randy Butler, and I'm with Dirigo Engineering. The plan you have before you is a 28-lot subdivision, 25 of those lots being residential. Most of the property is within Fairfield. It's a 170-acre property, the entire parcel. Not the entire thing is being divided at this point. There's potential for future subdivision of about the upper northwest corner, if you look on your map, is not yet being developed, but there's aims to do that in the future. The reason that we're here for Waterville is because 2 of the lots, in fact 1 residential lot and a portion of the open space lot, lie within Waterville. If you look at your plans there down toward the bottom, you can see the Fairfield Waterville town line, and then you'll see a part of residential lot number 3. You know, about an acre, maybe an acre and a third, lies within Waterville, and then a couple of acres of the open space recreation area, which is the former Kennebec Water District Reservoir that lies within the city of Waterville. We have been through the Fairfield Planning Board 2 or 3 different times. We have received preliminary plan approval. We're waiting upon DEP review. This had to go through site location of development review because of the impacts. So we're still waiting on them before we can finalize the plan. There's a chance that some of the lot lines or some of the buffers may be revised slightly, but I don't expect much change. You might know, just to give yourself the bearing, Route 104, Norwich Walk Road is off to the left there. The site will be accessed from the new road called Reservoir Lane. And if you were to go out there to the site at this point, you can actually see they've started, last year, they got approval from the Fairfield Planning Board to do a little bit of development for a construction yard there on that first lot, large lot to the southwest. So if you're interested in seeing where the property is, there is a cutout there and a little short road going in. I welcome your questions. Lot sizes are essentially 80,000 square foot minimum. This lot number 3 is actually one of the largest of the residential lots, about 3 acres.
Any questions? Dave?
Yes, sir.
So lot 3, where it's in Waterville, do you anticipate that the building that would be on there would have a Fairfield address?
I would think so, yes, I would imagine it would. That's more up to the 911 officers to confirm that, but I would think, if you look at, one of the things you might look at there is you'll see kind of a green hash mark within that site, within that property. That represents the building envelope. DEP requires us to identify kind of the outline of the area in which they're allowed to build, and that includes, or some of the restrictions are setbacks. They're gonna be so many feet away from the property lines. They've
Yep.
gotta be so many feet away from wetlands, or in other cases, there might be buffers, wooded buffers on the site. So as you can see, if you look at that, actually lot 3, about 2/3 of the building envelope is within Fairfield, but who knows? It's up to
Right.
the homeowner to determine where they want to build. The high ground is kind of straddles the line, so it may end up they have a part of the house in Fairfield, part in Waterville.
Yeah.
Did they have 100 feet of road frontage?
Yes, with that cul-de-sac, yes, we do. That line, that horizontal line with that, sorry, I should say the T turnaround, that leg.
That leg is.
That
100
leg is
feet.
100
Okay,
feet,
thank you.
yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And that will be accessed from a private road. That portion that comes into this lot number 3 is a private road. As
Yep.
you can see, there are lots 11 and 12 are also connected to that road.
Will that road remain private, or is that?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes, yeah, Reservoir Lane, and Easy Street, will be public. The intent is to have, for those to become public roads turned over to the town of Fairfield. But Gravel Street will remain private.
Any other questions? Do any members of the public have any questions? Okay. Do you need anything else from us, Dan, on that?
Nothing. So, when were you planning to bring this back?
We're not sure. It's undetermined right now. We have to wait for DEP to finish their review. They're in the process right now, but there's a chance that some lot lines or some of the buffers might be adjusted slightly. So our plan is to wait till we hear back from DEP, adjust lot lines as possible, and then we have to have an actual boundary surveyor, land surveyor, to finalize labeling of the lot lines and so forth, getting all the meets and bounds located on that. So I expect it's going to be probably another month or more before we get back here. I think our plan would be to go back to Fairfield first. Hopefully, one more meeting, we can get final approval from them if everything goes well. And then I assume, Ann, maybe you can instruct me, do you want to come back here after their final? Is
Yeah.
that the intent?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I would expect a month or perhaps more.
Did the Fairfield Planning Board have any concerns when you went there?
Nothing substantial, no. Surprisingly, we had very little feedback from the public on this, and just coincidentally, the
Oh, I know.
chair of the planning board is here as well, so I don't know if he desires to give any feedback, but he can hopefully substantiate what I'm saying, that there's very little, surprisingly, very little concern from the public.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Item number 4, LA Properties LLC is requesting an informal pre-application review for a 5-lot subdivision at 200 8 Rod Road. This review is in accordance with Article 4 of the subdivision ordinance.
I do have some plans
And that.
for you for that one. That's the rezoning map, and then this is actually the subdivision, this upper portion is
Gotcha.
actual subdivision.
Can you say that again?
The one with the green hatching, that is the plan presented for the rezoning of the property or a portion of the property. And then the other one is the actual subdivision layout, is what's intended on this. I think the order of discussion, I assume, is to talk about the rezoning first,
Oh.
and then we'd like to present the,
We can't talk about the rezoning,
Well, you
right?
can't vote on it tonight,
okay.
but you can discuss it. It's actually on the agenda for July 26th.
Right.
And the reason it's not on the agenda for tonight is because of the 14-day notification requirement. The city council had to vote to refer it to the planning board before it could be on your agenda. But there's no reason why you can't discuss it.
So, we're saying they're two different subdivisions?
well, no, it's just one subdivision. The first plan, the one that's kind of not a lot of detail on it,
Yep,
is essentially the plan that we're presenting to indicate the area that's to be rezoned.
right.
What happened
I
on this
understand.
property, it was originally, the entire 40 or so acres, 42 acres, was originally zoned as rural residential. And then I believe about 2 years ago, it was rezoned as solar, because there was intent to do, at the time, I think that it was rezoned, they had plans to do the entire parcel. And then because of some limitations, they decided to back that down, so really only putting the solar power, the solar arrays on about half of the parcel. So now we're back to that point where, okay, now we're looking to develop the portion next to 8 Rod Road, and because it's, had been rezoned as solar, we'll kind of retract that and get it back into rural residential so that we can develop that.
And would this mean that we need to, revise the solar plan that was brought before us? Because that was a different,
Yeah.
you know, it had its own road, there was a buffer.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be community gardens and all kinds of different things, so
Right.
this would change that solar plan.
Yes. It wouldn't change it substantially. In fact, what you see on there is called Breton Lane. That is substantially the same as the road that was coming in previously. And that, we do have preserved kind of right dead center of, if you look at that subdivision plan, we have called out there a common area, and the intent is that that could now become a community garden. It's kind of a little bit of a dead space, too close to the solar arrays really to build, but it'd make a nice spot for a garden or whatever the homeowners association decided to do with that portion of the property. So we do have plans for, still could be a community garden, but it could be relocated to a little more favorable position instead of right out by 8 Rod Road.
Any other questions?
I was just looking at the assessor's map, and this is still assessor's parcel 70. It hasn't been subdivided or just divided in any way. It's still one parcel.
Right, yes. Nothing has happened yet on the solar lease, so that's still, you know, hopeful that things will move forward on that, but that's not locked in stone until we see dirt moving out there. Nothing's etched in, nothing's concrete yet, so that's why you're not seeing anything for an actual part. And the other thing is that this land is just being leased as well, so it will stay under the ownership of Double Eagle Properties, the solar portion. The other lots are going to be sold, the subdivision lots themselves will be sold.
I have a question for Ann. Ann, are we allowed to divide a single lot into two different zones? Like
Oh,
one-
yeah, yeah.
You are?
Yeah, we actually, one time, with the city solicitor's blessing, rezoned one condominium and a condominium project.
Okay. All right.
It's on Upper Main Street.
Bruce?
Yes, thank you. So just curious on the timing, when do you, is this like on a fast track, you want it to be, or what are you expecting from it?
Yes, absolutely. It's as fast as we can get through. The intent is to try to start building 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even half a dozen lots this fall, if possible, if we can get everything done in time.
How large are the lots?
The lots are roughly 20,000 square feet minimum, so about a
Okay.
half acre. That's the target, yes. So the goal is to put for modulars here on this
Yep.
part, on these lots is what the intent is, with a 2-car garage as much as possible. There might be 1 or 2 of the lots that are a little bit tight with setbacks from wetlands and other things, but 90% of them should be able to accommodate a modular
So,
plus a
in
garage.
theory though, that we will get the zoning request at our next meeting, which will then go back to the city council for 2 votes. And then you would come back to us after that for a final review.
Preliminary,
yeah, I guess-
preliminary and final.
So you'll be ready if it all went, through the process, and let's just assume if it did get approved, you'd be coming back maybe in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, as soon as it's possible, yes. And our intent is to do, you might notice on the subdivision plan, kind of up top left, there's a label called Phase 1. So the intent is, and that includes lots 1 through 10. So the intent is to try to get those passed as soon as possible, in the next month or 2, whatever the timeline allows. And part of the reason we're not doing the entire parcel is because we do have that road that's called Garden Lane, that would have a wetland crossing, and we'd have to get that permitted through DEP. And that's just another hurdle. We're saying, okay, if we can get half a dozen lots or so ready for this summer, then he can start moving some earth. And then we can work on permitting for the remaining portion in the coming, this late fall or winter, whatever the case might be.
Randy,
Yes.
could you explain a little bit about the process of these modular homes and how they're constructed? Is it a concrete slab and then they essentially stack a prefabricated structure?
Typically, they're a foundation, a
Yep.
full wall
Okay.
foundation, and I think the intent here, as much as possible, is to put in a full basement. In some cases, you can do them with more like a crawl space, but they're placed on walls. That's the intent. They're all wood frame structure, no steel. So they're, basically, you build a full depth foundation just like for any other house, and then they come in with a crane and set the 2 halves or whatever the case. Simple, easy modular would be something like a 28 by 52 or thereabouts, 2 halves, not unlike your double wides. The difference being your double wide comes on a trailer and steel frame and so forth, as opposed to a modular, which is generally better built.
Are you
And,
thinking ranch-style houses or two-story?
I don't know the exact answer to that. Rick the owner was not able to be here tonight, so I think it might be some of each. I think his intent is mostly ranches, but
Do
I'm
you
not
do you
certain.
know if Rick's planning? I mean, it sounds like he's planning on selling these to individual buyers. So,
Correct.
would it be a thing where people might pick out some finishes and then build them?
It may be some of each. I suspect it's
Okay.
gonna be some of each. I know he's got several homes. He also owns affordable manufactured housing down in Sydney, and I know he has several homes on the way. So in some cases, it's gonna be him just putting in the homes that he already has. I'm not sure exactly if he's gonna be able to, I'm not sure of the timing on that. That's a good question, whether or not. There may be some cases where that would be applicable, depending on the timing, but I think at least for these first several will be homes that he's already got on the way, that he's placing.
And these are all on sewer.
These would have to be septic system, individual leach
Individual
fields.
septic
Yes, so
system.
that is another step that we have to complete, is to do perk tests on all these lots.
Okay.
Yes.
Do these homes require wells as well as septic?
Yes, we think that that's the intent. He originally had thought, this is just out, it's on the backside of Punky Lane, Punky Meadows, Punky Lane Mobile Home Park, and that is served by a water main. And initially, he thought that he might just bring that water main across to serve these, but his latest thoughts is that he may end up having to go with private wells, just because of the finances of it.
David.
Yeah, I have a few questions about utilities. Power, it's all underground, I'm assuming?
I would assume so. I guess I haven't covered that ground with him. That's a good question. I think that's his intent.
Yep.
But I'd have to confirm that.
I will say, I'm actually quite concerned about the groundwater situation in that area of the city. It's not a great aquifer. The comprehensive plan lays it out pretty well in Chapter 9 in the groundwater section. I would definitely encourage you and Rick to read that. But it basically talks about how the water is very slow moving. And so there's a good chance that there could be a buildup of contaminants. And it talks about where the water enters the aquifer, which is over by the airport and along the I-95 corridor.
Okay.
So, you know,
Right.
first thing that comes to my mind is PFAS,
Okay.
but it could be other stuff as well.
Right.
So
Are there any known PFAS sites in that vicinity?
nothing has been mandated to be tested
I
yet,
don't think anything's been tested over there.
but I would imagine that anyone buying a new home would definitely
Right.
want that tested. So
Not on city water.
it's not on city
Right,
water,
Not on city water.
right? So
Okay. Well, thank you for the
may want to drill a well, and have it tested.
Right.
So
Right. Good. Well, thank you for the feedback.
yeah.
Bruce.
Yeah, I think you asked it already, Sam, but just to clarify, the residents will own the property, the buildings and the land, or
Yes, that is
the
correct.
building and the land,
Correct.
and Rick will maintain the road? Is that what's gonna happen?
No, well, the desire is to turn the road over to the town, to the city, I should say.
Okay. We'll know that maybe when you come back.
No, well, I know that's his intent, is to turn the roads over to the city, but you're correct, the lots themselves will be owned by the purchaser of the home and the property. So Rick is essentially trying to get out of the tenant-landlord relationship. Been doing it for many years, and he's looking for, not to be responsible for homes anymore.
Right. I expect there'll be some demand, but just want to make sure. Thank you for that info.
I think, any other questions? Any questions from the public? Go ahead, Dave.
Have you guys spoken with the housing committee about this?
No,
No? I would encourage you to do so. I'd
Okay.
love to hear their feedback.
I did reach out to Rebecca Green, and she mentioned that they hadn't talked as much about new construction on the housing committee. Is that correct, Dan?
She did ask me to tell the committee at the last meeting what projects were
Okay.
before the planning board, so they're aware of this.
Yeah, I know that they've spoken with, I'm bad with names, the guy over at Seton,
Yes.
Oh, Kevin Metz.
Yeah.
Madison.
so.
Well, thanks, Randy.
What,
Yeah.
yeah, can I ask
Yeah,
a question?
sorry, I didn't
Sorry, yeah, anyway, I'm over here. Yeah, so, this was like the first meeting I participated in, I think, actually, where, we talked about rezoning this to solar. And I came away with the understanding that the solar farm was gonna be leasing the entire parcel, but it sounds like you guys haven't, or, Rick hasn't, gotten into an agreement with the solar farm, is that
Well,
correct?
I think the original intent was to lease the entire parcel, and then because of restraints and so forth on how much, the number of megawatts that they could produce at this site and so forth, they decided to scale it back. So the actual leased portion is what you see, that kind of half
So
of that
is-
parcel.
But that there is an agreement. So I guess what
Yes.
I'm asking is,
That's
there's not a chance that we have to be looking at a future scenario where the solar farm property that we're looking at now gets rezoned rural residential, an extension of this development into that area?
I wouldn't say that completely, because nothing's a done deal yet.
Okay.
Until you see solar panels going up there, nothing's 100% set in
Okay.
concrete, so we don't want to restrain ourselves to that. So there's always a potential if something falls through, that he may decide he wants to develop more of this as residential.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's, right now, he's got an agreement but those are still subject to change.
Are there any buffers between the properties and the solar farm or anything like that?
There's
I mean,
a-
obviously they must be fenced, but
Yes, there'll be a fence. The way the ordinance is written, my understanding is that the solar farm, when it comes in, has to be, I think it's 250-foot setback, is that correct, Ann? I think that's shown on the plans. I think the solar farm has to be set back 250 feet from an existing residential unit. Okay, so that's the distinction at the time of at the time it's permitted. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure is, there's no problem once the solar farm is permitted or in place, that it is possible to build closer than that 250 feet if the solar farm is already there. The intent is to protect people who've been there for a long period of time. Obviously, none of us would want a solar farm right on our back door, to keep that distance. But if the solar farm's already there and somebody decides, oh, I'm okay with buying a piece of property that's 100 feet from that solar farm, then that's their prerogative.
Yeah, I know the original buffer was along 8 Rod Road, and so I'm assuming now it's going to have to come down now along the blue line.
Yeah, and actually,
Area to be
well, I
rezoned.
guess I'm not sure. I think the buffer is from the actual solar array. It's not so much from the zone line,
Well, right.
if I'm wrong, Ann.
It's, a buffer was added on the southeastern part of the solar array because somebody has a vacant parcel there, and they were concerned that if they built a house in the future and there wasn't a buffer, so a buffer was added down there, so,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that would need to be revisited as far as the buffer along that fence line. It would really need to be there between that subdivision.
Yeah, I don't think anything has changed to the southeast. Anything for change is going to be toward this
Yeah,
proposed
right.
subdivision.
Right.
Bruce.
You're muted, Bruce.
Yeah, just a logistics thing. Somebody actually sent me a message, said they couldn't hear Rick very well, so if he could stay closer to the mic, that would be very helpful for all of us. Is that all right?
Yep, I'm assuming
Yes.
your mic is on, right, Randy?
I believe it is.
Yeah,
Sounds like
okay.
Yeah, but I think if you stray away from it, it's hard to hear, so.
Okay.
That's technology for us, right? Thank you. I'm just relaying the message.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, any other questions for Randy? Okay, well, you want to stay up for the next one too?
Yep, I just got to pass out some more papers.
Okay. So the next one is LA Properties LLC is requesting an informal pre-application review for a 6-lot subdivision on assessor parcel 16101 on the Webb Road. Thank you.
One more time.
sir.
Thank you.
You've got one hand, is that correct?
Yes, that one, thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to give you a summary?
Yeah, just
Okay.
summarize for us.
Yeah, currently, a similar situation as far as the timing and so forth. The intent is to, again, try to perhaps build 3 or 4 lots or prepare 3 or 4 lots that might be able to be constructed this season. As you can see on the parcel, It's more like a 18 to 20 lot subdivision, but we'll see how things go in the next few weeks. One of the big limiting factors, you can see the big finger of wetlands that is kind of snaking up through the property. Those need to be confirmed. Those are kind of suspect areas that were kind of outlined in the wintertime when it's not the best time to outline those. So we've got the soil scientists coming sometime in the next week or two to to determine if indeed
It's
those.
still hard to hear him.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, let me get that down
There
in
we
front of
go.
me.
Thank
There, okay, sorry about that.
Appreciate it.
So the intent is to have a soil scientist come back out, check those to see if they indeed are wetlands, and depending on whether they are or not, that may affect the way that we do the lot layout. We've kind of had to work around them a little bit. For example, Lot 3, which is the third one down, access to that would probably be from in behind. So the road configuration is still somewhat fluid until we get those wetlands nailed down. The intent, again, is to probably have 6 or 7 lots along Webb Road. We do have some limitations as far as how many driveways, how frequent the driveways can be along there. So we've got to explore that a little bit, make sure we're in compliance on that. So again, the intent will be at some point probably just to develop the first 6 or 8 lots to start off with, and then reserve phase 2 for later on. I think the target on these lots was about 15,000 square feet. One thing you might notice, the question you asked earlier, Tom, about whether or not zone could split a property, this is one of those properties that it does split already. If you notice there, 250 feet from center line of Webb Road, there's an existing change in the zone. The lots closest to Webb Road are zone RB.
Okay.
The lots further back beyond that line are zone RR.
And those require a minimum of 20,000.
They are, okay. And I maybe did account for that. It's been a few weeks since I've worked on this portion.
I'm impressed you're keeping it all straight.
Well, it's
For now.
somewhat of a challenge.
Will there need to be anything done for drainage or anything there where it might be kind of a wetland?
There are, I don't know if it shows up, in fact, it does show up on the plans. There are, because this has historically been agricultural land, and there are a few drain tiles down through there. If you look just to the back side, of the south side of lots 2 and 3, you'll see kind of a blue line with an arrow on it.
Yep.
And it says, that text there says drain tile.
Okay.
And then there's another one back down just below, south of lots 12 and 13. Yes, we'll have to take into account drainage because that wetland, those wetland that are shown there, those are kind of swales, drainage areas. So we'll have to account for that when we do the house layout and road layouts to account for culverts as necessary, et cetera.
Are these proposed lots, are these on septic and wells?
This lot does have sewer running past it on the sewer coming in from Oakland, comes down Webb Road, so we do have potential for tying in there. We also may have some potential, although there is a slight potential for some of the lots, because the grade drops away as part of the issue. The grade, from Webb Road to the back of the lot, I can't quite see the numbers here, but I think we've got probably a 10 to 12 foot drop to the back. So we'll have to get that resolved as to how we serve those. It may be a combination. I'm thinking the lots that are out nearest to the road that can flow by gravity will go to Webb Road, and the other lots may have to be septic systems.
And it's wells, they don't have city water, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, I would have the same concern there that I mentioned before with the wells. This one's pretty close to the airport.
Okay.
Fire suppression foam
Yeah.
is a concern.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you send me an electronic copy of this in case anybody watching
Okay.
would like to have a copy of this?
Sure.
I had assumed you would be sharing your screen so the public could see the plans.
Oh,
Could you do that next?
Anne, is that you speaking?
Yeah, sorry, I was asking Randy to provide us with an electronic copy of this plan so I can send it out to anybody who might be watching tonight who wants to see it. I had thought that he would be sharing his screen. So can you do that at the next meeting?
I can. I'll have to work through the logistics of, I assume maybe send it in to you and you can get it to the right people to, would it be posted on this screen or some other location?
You should be able to connect your screen to the, David is the wizard here.
Okay, well, we'll figure out the logistics of it.
I think I-
Oh, I have one more question. If we're potentially connecting these homes to the sewer system in Oakland, how does that work?
Well, it's not this sewer system on Webb Road is
Okay.
coming from
It's-
Oakland.
oh.
I don't know the timing. I think it was, I want to say in the last 10, 15 years, I think a new sewer main was run down Webb Road from Oakland. So it's actually flowing down to, there's a pump station down at the,
KSTD, they connected
It's
into
kinda- okay.
KSTD.
yes, it'll ultimately flow into Waterville's
Okay.
KSTD system,
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
There's a pump station that flows down to West River Road, and then there's a pump station, I believe it flows to a pump station down at the corner of Village Green, I think is where this whole
familiar.
system
Okay.
goes to.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Okay.
All right? Thank you very much, folks, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one will be the rezone in 2 weeks.
Correct, I believe that's right.
Okay, item number 6. Maine Army National Guard is requesting a review for revisions to a previously approved site plan in order to construct a storage building at 74 Drummond Avenue. Do we have someone from there?
Hillary, will you be letting, the engineer was going to be attending via Zoom?
If you tell me the name, I have a couple of people here. Who would that be?
Could you just raise your hand if you are the engineer for the Maine National Guard?
Don
There
Wallace.
we go.
Thank you.
Oh, I got it.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you very much. I'm Don Wallace with Oak Point Associates, civil engineer. This is a project for the WMD part of the Maine Army National Guard. It's actually 11 Armory Avenue is the physical address. It's an unheated storage building with no sewer, no water. Power and communication for the building will be pulled off the existing Maine National Guard, Army National Guard building. It's going to have one full high story and a mezzanine inside, and it's just going to be used for storage, pulling a truck in, unloading, maybe storing the truck overnight, and then taking out. There'll be no maintenance done on vehicles in the building. Not much more than that can be said about it. It's a pretty boring building. I'm sorry I can't share my screen. I'm having computer issues and I'm on my iPad. But I believe you all have the plans in front of you. Does anyone have any question about the design or the building itself? Or
I have a quick question.
sure.
I read in the description that the proposed building was to the east of the existing storage building. I assume that would be on the right side of the drawing? The new building would be on the right side of the existing storage building?
Right. What they meant by the storage building, if you look at this, there's a addition we put on in 2009, and it's for the vehicles and storage. It's where the temporary benchmark is on CS 101. That's what they mean to the east of the building.
Is there a substantial grade change between the existing storage building that you built and then the existing Army parking lot is further to the east? Is is it the same level, or is the land higher where their proposed building is?
Oh, I
going?
see what you're saying.
Yep.
Yes, the Armory building is down a hill. This building is very much higher than the Armory building that's on Drummond Avenue. Probably close to 30 feet higher.
Okay. Does that require a retaining wall, or how do you?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
It's far enough set
No,
back from the
just so you
slope.
know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, Ann, do you want us to move on to findings and facts?
Is there anybody, Hillary, from the public asking?
I don't have anyone else with a hand raised.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we will move forward with findings and facts. So, did you
Make
have
a motion to read them by number only.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any opposition? I hope you have a copy of this in front of you. I'm just gonna read the number, and you say true or false. So, item number 1. You still with
Is
us?
he still there?
Yes, I
Still
didn't
there.
know who you were talking to.
Oh,
Sorry.
yep, sorry.
True. Yeah. I have it.
Do you have a copy of the findings and facts?
I do, right up on my other screen.
Okay, perfect. So, item number 1, true or false?
True.
Yep, and we have a letter from the city engineer. Number 2,
True.
yes. Item number 3,
True.
item number 4,
True.
item number 5,
True.
item number 6,
True.
item number 7,
True.
item number 8,
True.
and item number 9.
True.
And then some conditions that Anne has added. Fire, the project is subject to general life and safety review by the Waterville Fire Department, and a Knox box shall provide after-hours emergency access to the storage building.
Okay.
The developer shall provide a letter from Jefferson Longfellow, who is the district engineer of Kennebec Water District,
Yep.
and erosion control.
Yep. I'll be adding that. I've actually already added that for the 65% submission for the alternate one.
Okay.
So you are going with the alternate one? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Andy. We're not sure if they're going to get it. How it works is they'll get a price on it, and the guard will either take it or not take it, depending on the budget and how much it is. The base bid is the building and the pavement to the left of the building, and then the retaining wall and the additional pavement for a drive-through truck is alternate one. So it all depends on how the bid comes in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other conditions that anybody from the board would like to add? Hearing none, I will take a motion to accept the findings and facts.
So moved.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Hillary, and we'll do a roll call. Dave?
Yes.
I am a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Cassie?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
And Bruce?
Yes.
Wonderful. All set, Ann?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And item number 7, Kevin Violet is requesting a review for revisions to a previously approved plan for a 24-lot cluster development on City View Drive off Main Street.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Allen from AE Hudson. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you, Jeff.
For some reason you can't see me though. So.
And we do have Mr. Violet here as well.
Good evening, Jeff.
Oh, I think he's just trying. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. Time I get everything connected here. Yes, I believe Mr. Violet is in the audience as well. So good evening. It's good to see you guys again. I'm Jeff Allen from AE Hudson, and tonight we're talking about a subdivision that Hudson has developed a couple times in the past and has been permitted in the past, starting in 1993. It was a 5-lot subdivision. It then, in 2000, was revised to a cluster subdivision, and in 2011, reapproved by the city again. So we're back to actually build it this time, I hope. What we've done is broken it into 3 separate phases, and I can share my screen. Probably that's the easiest way to show you what I'm talking about here. There, if you're able to see that. The subdivision is located off of North Main Street. This is just north of the interstate overpass. And this is just below it here is the New Beginnings Church of God, just to the south of it. And we're just further north on Main Street from that. As you can see, we've got into 3 different subdivisions, or 3 different phases, I'm sorry. And we're looking tonight just to do phase 1, which would be 7 homes right off the road, right off Main Street. We'd be building a new road, and this would function as a turnaround in here for the fire department. Phase 2 will go on, continue, and build the full cul-de-sac and some additional homes here. And then phase 3 would connect these 2 loops here with a private road that would serve another 9 homes up this way. So it's a kind of an ambitious plan. It's going to take a while to do. And in fact, that's one of the questions that we wanted to do at this point. The ordinance, I think it's section 7.4.2, requires the subdivision to be started within 1 year and completed within 2. Well, obviously, it's already been started because they put in, when this was approved before, they put the new sewer line all the way in from Main Street into the cul-de-sac, and this very faint image right here is the last manhole on the sewer main at this point. They also stubbed out a water main coming across Main Street prior to the one time they were paving Main Street, and have the water stubbed into here. As part of phase 1, of course, we'll have to extend the water main up to here, and Mr. Violet's spoken with the fire chief and agreed on this location right at the intersection of the 2 roads here to place a new fire hydrant. So that will be done as part of phase 1. And also we'll have it's hard to see with the zoom here, if you zoom in a little bit more, we'll have the new water line going up to this stub as well, and it'll be capped at the end. And the water line will continue just beyond the hydrant here and be capped so we can go to phase 2 later. As I mentioned before, the timing, getting it all done in 2 years is a challenge because it's expensive. And so at this point, in that same section 7.4.2, it allows the applicant to ask for a time extension to complete the phase 1. And so at this point, we'd like to go ask for a 5 years to complete all of this. That would be, the intent is, as I understand it, Mr. Violet can confirm this in a minute or two, would be to do all the infrastructure, which is going to be underground water and sewer, of course, also underground communications and electrical service coming into the subdivision. So it'll be all underground. Get that completed up to this point where we're showing as phase 1, and build a total of 7 houses here. Now, the timing is, so that's the first request we have, is for an extension to complete for 5 years, understanding that it's this, we've already started doing that, and so, or started the construction. The other factor to consider is how we're going to pay for the road. We want to build this road to city standards because the main City View Drive, which is the road coming from Main Street into the cul-de-sac, we hope will be taken over by the city. And I know Mr. Violet's spoken with Engineer McPherson, and they've agreed, Andy has agreed to inspect the road as it's being built, so that at the time that he wants to turn it over, the city will know that it's built properly. It has the proper amount of base and everything underneath of it. So that's going to be done. In the meantime, he wants to have the road come in and be able to start on a couple houses here. And if we were to have it a private road, we could build 3 houses, and then his intent is to go back and do the finished paving. As part of building the road, we would do the preliminary paving, just the base layer. But with all the construction traffic going back and forth, we kind of want to hold off in doing the final pavement, final layer of pavement, until a lot of the work is done, so we don't tear up the pavement, don't tear up the road. So we put in the first layer of pavement, all the gravel, all the underground infrastructure initially, and just do the binder pavement, the first bottom layer. And his request, instead of being able to build just 3 homes on the private road until it's accepted by the city, we'd like to build the total of all 7 homes. And at that point, and possibly before, depending on how the finances go with the sale of the homes, he may want to go through and do the final pavement before then. But the agreement would be that we would do up to the first 7 homes, or up to and including the first 7 homes, and then do the final layer of pavement on the road. So the other item that's shown on the plan here is down off the road here, we've got a stormwater pond. It's labeled future drainage. Our intent at this point is this phase 1 that we've got so far is less than 1 acre of impervious that we're creating. And so because of that, we don't need a DEP stormwater permit and have to do a stormwater pond or stormwater treatment systems. Before we can go on to phase 2 or 3, we've got to create stormwater structures that will treat the water quality and the water quantity. And we also have to obtain a stormwater permit from DEP, because this will be more than 3 acres of impervious, or more than 3 acres disturbed and less than 3 acres of impervious that we'll create for the entire parcel. So we don't need a site location permit. So there's a couple of things that are kind of holding us up in the language of the ordinances. The first one being, you can only have 3 homes on a private road. This is in the zoning ordinance 4.3.22A that defines a private road. It says you can only have no more than 3 dwellings, and it cannot be dedicated or not intended to be dedicated as a public street. Well, City View Drive, we are going to or the goal is to have it be accepted as a public street. And so that kind of doesn't meet the definition of a private road, but, I wanted to kind of discuss this a little bit tonight and make sure that you understand we're not meeting specifically the letter of the ordinance, but certainly we're trying to meet the intent of it, that we'll do as much as we can with as economic financially as we can. So I guess Mr. Violet may have some additional comments that he wants to make at this point. But then after he is finished, I'd be happy to entertain some questions at that point. Oh yeah, we also do have public water, sewer, and stormwater connections. So, Mr. Violet, if you're
Very good.
wanted to
Thank you, Jeff. That is a pretty good outline of basically what we're looking for tonight. And want to ask, well, gee, you were here 2003, you were here 2011, this is my third strike. As you looked how this project evolves from the early 90s, when Upper Main Street had saleable lots and a lot of upscale subdivisions, upscale house construction was happening on Upper Main Street, this project was approved as a 5-lot subdivision, and it was to be set back from Main Street. The 5-lot subdivision, most real estate guys and most finances of real estate guys have to have the numbers work. And the way the ordinance reads here tonight, and the way it read in 2011 when I went from a 5-lot subdivision to a cluster, it's not cost feasible to develop the project. It's not the cost of the infrastructure in that road system. 8-inch sewer mains, 8-inch water mains, sewer drains, phone cable power. We also have been approved for natural gas to run into this project as well. And the cost, again, to build this road to city standards exceeds what you can sell 5 lots for. Very simple arithmetic. Changing to cluster, which means there's common space, there's a central park, and there's a cul-de-sac that's landscaped and with park benches. Complies with the cluster development, but some of the items in your subdivision regulations, 10.2.8, no subdivision may be sold or leased or otherwise conveyed before the street upon which the fronts have been completed in accordance with the ordinance, up to including the entire frontage of the lot. No unit in a multifamily development shall be occupied before the street of which the unit is assessed is completed in accordance with the ordinance. So technically, I would build 1,000 feet of city street. I would spend $1.2 million, and then I could draw out the first building permit to see if it was going to be feasible to do so. By breaking the project into phases, it lets me attack 400 feet of street, spend $400,000, and we would build 3 to 5 homes. These homes are architecturally designed retirement homes. This is a retirement community, 55 and older, no minor children in residence. Because of cluster, we can do small lots and small homes. Because of cluster, we can do no internal setbacks, yet the plan in the ordinance requires 30-foot setbacks around this entire project to all the abutters. I've been working up there off and on. We did run the sewer line all the way in years ago. We did do all the storm drain system and brought it up Main Street. We did bring the water main across there, 8-inch water main, years ago, to have the infrastructure in place to do this. But again, cost feasible. Timeline is a huge issue. 9.1.11, 24 months to start and complete the project. We would have to do $3 million worth of house construction, and we would have to do, if we just did phase 1, and we would have to do $500,000 worth of amounts of infrastructure. Hard to do that in 24 months. That's why we're asking for the 60-month program, because depending on the marketability, depending on the market, depending on the economy, we have a couple interested parties that would go to Upper Main Street as soon as I could build. By phasing the project, I can fast-track the project. knowing that this is built to city standards and gravel to city standards and inspected by the city engineer, the paving would come in after house 2 or 3, probably. I have a deeded requirement. I am promising on by deed that I will pave that street to my buyers and homeowners that move in there. So there's no obligation to the city. And my preference, as Jeff has pointed out, would be to do the base coat. House 2, 3, 4, it's not a lot of money, 50, 60,000, base coat. Don't beat it up with construction trucks, do the final coat later. But keep in mind, I'm selling finished homes on finished lots, and we're selling a small lot with a home that is between 1,250 square feet. There's some 1350s, there's a 1490. So there are 4 different prototypes that we've designed and costed, and we've itemized the estimates so we have current material list to resubmit for current pricing. And we've bid out all the subcontractors on these 4 prototypes as well. These homes are energy efficient, usually 1 floor. They're not on a slab. Maine people want houses on foundations, frost wall, footing frost wall, slab on grade, super foamed under the slabs for radiant heat if they want it. And these prototypes, so the smaller ones, can come with no car. Most of the duplexes we did a project in Fairfield and built duplex, have a 1 car. But some of the prototypes are available, spare bedroom, bathrooms, 2-car garage, so they can go, up to 1,800 square feet quite easily. And because you're titled your lot, your home, you get a tax bill for that. And the project is being proposed under a grounds maintenance agreement, not a condo association. Not a lot of rules and regulations, a homeowners association for grounds maintenance only. So if you own lot 3, you're paying $40 a month. Someone mows everybody's lawn, shovels their walks, plows their driveways. So it's a grounds maintenance association throughout the whole community. And again, 24 homes. The 2 keys here now, again, there's an example of one of the homes. There's 3 or 4 different color schemes. That's the 2-car. All of them have cathedral ceilings. There's the trusses. They're all raised heel scissors so they can be super insulated. Anderson windows, the best doors. We want to create what we would call a professional retirement community in Waterville. It's now said if you want to retire in Waterville, you have to leave town, okay, because there's not a lot of these programs out there. This is for the middle guy that's selling his great big home on Burley Street, wants to stay in Waterville. He has friends here. He wants to travel winters and come home and the walks are shoveled. So the grounds maintenance, 55 and over community, no minor children in residence, is appealing to a lot of people that are approaching retirement but don't want to have to leave town. Questions?
Questions? Tom?
I saw an email this afternoon from the city engineer, Andy McPherson, and he was concerned about stormwater and how that was going to be handled. Some of the homes were 5 feet or 7 feet above grade, potentially.
I saw that correspondence late today. Jeff could probably speak to that issue. There are no homes that are going to be 5 feet in the air. And the stormwater management system that Jeff has outlined, that's shown on that map, is designed to cover phase 1, 2, and 3, whereas he has separate drainage fields in the lower area to the left. The stormwater management shown on that plan there today doesn't need to be built for the first phase because there's less than an acre of impervious. It's not required, but we've designed it. We've leased the property next door from a neighbor to locate it, and it's all staked out, and we're ready to build it when we need to. And part of the underdrain system that's been installed that Jeff and others haven't spoke to was also designed to take the upslope drainage from actually phase 2 and put that in ditch lines, put it through storm drains with an overflow that goes out to that wetlands mitigation area that Jeff is showing there. So I met with the engineer past couple days. We've gone through the logistics of inspecting the roads and phasing the project, but we did not get into drainage. And again, I saw that correspondence late this afternoon. And Jeff, I'm sure you'd like to speak to that.
I did email back to Andy, and go through that a little bit. Yeah, this stormwater pond down here will treat the phase 1 and usually most of phase 3. Some of the areas over in phase 2, I'm going to do what DEP calls a bioretention cell. These are also called rain gardens, which are more suited for like individual lots. They're a lot smaller than doing a big stormwater filter. This is actually an underdrain filter. It's not going to be a pond holding water. It's an area that water runs into, runs through a filter media and gets drained out the bottom and returned back. So you're treating both water quality and water quantity. The bioretention filters would fit potentially over here or below, in these relatively flat areas here that are much smaller, much more compact. And usually what happens is people plant them with flowers. They're all, bioretention soils are also called rain gardens. So it becomes really a community asset rather than something you have to do to treat stormwater and create a big ugly pond. These are more personal size drainage systems. For example, up here, I may put one right in the middle between the two driveways going into these units. Again, we're looking at just phase 1 at this point, but I've thought ahead to try to accommodate as much as I can in phase 2 and 3 once we get to the full stormwater proposal with DEP. I also mentioned to Andy, because he brought out the houses that are 7 feet in the air. I think it was these number 9 and 10 over here. And I looked at them, they are 7 feet in the air. That's not where I want them. But one of the conditions that we've been granted before, I think I can zoom in here. Let me see. I think it was 4 and 5. This says we'll get a DEP permit when we need it. Also, each customer has to enter an agreement with the Kennebec Water District. It was up here. The location of units may vary from locations as depicted on the plans, depending on site conditions and the size of the units previously constructed. Final grades and floor elevations may be field adjusted to better accommodate existing contours and site conditions. That's, that was part of the cluster development. It was to have maximum flexibility to build what you want or build what the customers want when they want it. This area here is also, the individual homes are shown just a typical layout here of 46 by 32. They may not be all that big, and probably most of them won't, but we needed some sort of an envelope like that to depict how much water would be going to stormwater, or how much runoff would be going to stormwater from rooftops and from other impervious surfaces. So this is just a kind of a ballpark number that would give you a size of the building. The actual buildings will be, as Mr. Violet said, ranging from 1250 and up, depending on what amenities are required. And the image that I showed earlier of the individual homes show that they have a lot more architectural detail than these boxes that I stuck on the plan. So hopefully that answers your question about
I was looking at the elevations on this property, and it runs from roughly 120 feet of 28 feet of elevation up in phase 3, down to roughly 96 feet of elevation down by the retention pond, and it's heavily wooded. Now, I assume this land is going to be cleared to some degree for these homes. Do you worry about soil retention, and how do you keep the runoff from entering the abutters' properties?
No, good questions. And that's the reason why we're asking for a 60-month program, so that as we attack into phase 1, we start building homes 1, 2, 3, whatever the configuration is. Those sites are immediately vegetated, first of all, the erosion control for construction, and there's erosion control in the ditch lines going to the storm drains. And so that's all normal. And everything is vegetated, everything is paved. So all the drainage is done on house 1 and 2, probably before we even start house 3. So we don't leave acres unvegetated, which causes that erosion. As far as the drainage and the grades, again, because we're doing small homes, and that loop road that goes up around and comes down to the cul-de-sac, that is a single lane road with a walking trail alongside of it. So that's a very narrow one-way traffic down into the cul-de-sac on that private road. And it's for continuity of traffic, but it's also for the walking trails going into Central Park. And again, those sites are vegetated. They're erosion control pre-construction, post-construction, and there would be no reason to uncover and cause erosion on those slopes.
Is that road that you're discussing, does that have curbs and catch basins and underground?
According to the approvals that we got in 2011, there are curbs coming in off Main Street down to our storm drains, which are located about 75 feet on my property. And that takes the Main Street water, because there can't be a speed bump there, down into our curbs, into our paved city street, into the storm drains, and there's one on each side of the road, that then takes it out into the city storm drain system. So those storm drains facilitate that apron coming down into our project, as well as the drainage off our project.
You just mentioned the city storm drain system. I guess that's a separated system where it's stormwater separated from existing city sewer, because there's a city requirement.
Absolutely. We ran a sewer main up Main Street, ran it in our property about 700 feet. In doing so, discovered 5 people along the way had failing septic systems. We hooked them up to the city sewer, which they are now on easements up their back lawns, added a catch basin for cleanouts and access. That's been functioning for 15 years and no problems. So, yes, the storm drain system is surface drainage into the stormwater management program when required into Phase 2, and absolutely everything separated.
Okay. One of the reasons for delaying the proposed DEP stormwater catch system was
the reasoning for that is takes us right back to why we're here tonight. Cost feasibility. We have designed and conceived. Al Hodgson did it for me in 2011, and I hope he's looking down on us tonight. And that system was designed for the second phases of this construction. The system is still in place and still designed, but we don't have to apply for that stormwater management permit because the first phase, our 7 homes, there is not over an acre of impervious layer, which is paved driveways, paved roads, and roof covers. So because we're under that acre impervious, we're not required to do it, but they're planning. The design is there, the lease area is there, everything's ready to implement it. As a matter of fact, we're now talking about adding even another stormwater management system that's needed in the future along the ditch lines possibly.
If you have a design and you have an approximate cost and you know it's going to cost a lot, thereby delaying the project, why wouldn't you just apply for the DEP permit now? Why wait? Okay,
you can apply for the DEP permit now, but you have that added cost of putting this design together, submitting it with the fees to DEP, and as you heard your previous guys, waiting for DEP permits, which is a wait because of the solar programs. It's not required, it's not necessary, and by phasing this project and building only 450 feet of street in the first phase, my cost is around $300,000. If I don't have to do a stormwater management plan, not required by DEP or the city of Waterville, but I've made design intents for it, it's ready to go when required. When we start in Phase 2, okay, it's required, great, let's get those permits, let's build that structure, because the construction of that structure on this back lawn area, there's some cost involved. But if you defer your costs till you need to do work, you're fast-tracking a project, you're starting the project with less cost, and the cost feasibility goes up based on the number of homes and the cost to get the road there.
If DEP is so backed up, wouldn't you want to get in now at the front of the line rather than having it delay you down the road?
Most of the DEP permits, and Jeff can speak to this, we see with the solar programs that I'm doing, we see these guys turn projects around in about 9 months. So we're looking at a project that we're asking for a 60-month phasing. We surely have time when required after this first phase, which could take 3, 4, or 5 years to get on their agenda. But the other fear we always have is if we pre-design that guy right to the nut, get a permit for it, the rules change at DEP in 3 years, we're back to square one, we threw that money away. So we want to design, and what if there is a latest and greatest and new DEP requirement and these wildflower gardens he's speaking of? I love it. That's great. I don't want to see structure. I don't want to see concrete. I don't want to see ponds. I want to see a natural environment up on that field.
Wouldn't waiting and having uncertainty about the future DEP requirements add more risk to your pro forma?
That does really not, because the DEP is reasonably restrictive. It's really quite unlikely that they're going to get 10 times more restrictive, and then I got to follow that rule. We would follow that rule. I don't feel that doing something up front that is not required and costs time and money takes away from the project's feasibility to proceed economically, get your infrastructure done. There's going to be 4 layers of stuff under that road. The water lines are 6 feet, the sewer lines are 4 feet, the phone cable power's down 3 feet, and hopefully there's no gas lines stuck in the middle. And with underground phone cable power, we're jumping diagonally across the street, down the street, for pedestals, for transformers, and again, phone cable power. Everything has to be in place. When I turn over 400 feet to build the first home, there's $300,000 worth of infrastructure in that road before it's paved.
It just seems like you're taking an extra risk by waiting. When
Trust me,
you have to do those
getting up in the
diagonals
morning,
and all the
I'm going to
underground
be
service.
68 this week. Getting up in the morning is a risk.
Okay.
This is not a risk or a gamble for me.
Dave.
No, it's okay.
Cassie.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Dave.
Okay. Hey, Kevin. So a lot has already been said. I mean, the first thing that I guess I would want to suggest, a lot has been said about the deed details. We're obviously not going to be the ones to review that and have any knowledge of what any of that would actually say. So I would suggest that we have the city solicitor review that information before we made a decision. And I completely understand what you're saying about the cost feasibility and the ordinances that are in place and how they're restrictive. We've already had another developer off Lincoln Street who got an approved plan, and now they're saying they're not doing anything with it because it would be too expensive to build the road. So I guess I would encourage you to, I mentioned it earlier, reach out to our housing committee. They've been being pretty proactive in getting some adjustments made to things within the city to help people develop properties and stuff like that.
Well,
So-
it's if it's the same thing and same in Waterville and Fairfield, our planning board finds deficiencies. For example, we can't get a solar farm approved in 6 months because it takes 18 months to get a permit from DEP. We immediately modify that, or make a recommendation to our council, modify that item on our, in our ordinance. Because if it works, if this piece works for standard subdivisions, great. But when you starting a cluster, whereas there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of cost, everything's underground, and you're trying to weigh out the numbers. I'm going to build 7
Nope.
homes, phase 1, spending X dollars.
What you're saying is exactly what I'm saying.
The ordinance can be modified to fix that.
Absolutely.
But it's your recommendation to your council that
So
changes that.
usually they send it to us
The-
to have us have a public hearing
Oh, gotcha.
on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we make a recommendation.
Absolutely.
So,
Well,
you could certainly go to a city council meeting and ask them to make some adjustments because it
Absolutely.
would be the benefit of the entire community,
There's 3 items here.
and then we would have a public hearing.
I was asked a week ago if I'd talked to this committee, and I don't really know who they are. And I candidly said, give me 15 minutes. If you change 3 things in this ordinance, this meeting would have ended a half an hour ago, because this is how we have to build to be cost feasible, to build a housing for Waterville so you guys can live here after you retire. And if a few things are tweaked, your road ordinance, your private road ordinance, maximum 3 units. We don't have that in Fairfield. It might have fit and it might have worked, and that's cool, but if it was up to 8 units, there's your private, I can go under private road ordinance, build 7 homes, pave it, city inspects it, turn it over to the city. If that's how you get there, and Ann has been a huge help, by the way, just steering us through this ordinance, giving us information to look at. And we run into the same thing. It doesn't quite fit. It needs to be tweaked. How do we get there from here? We don't say because the ordinance says no, we don't say no, but we say, well, how? And Ann has done that with me. I've been in front of Ann since the mid-'80s, I hate to say. Even though she's...
Go ahead.
I mean, I recognize that we have a high demand for housing in Waterville, it's no question. I understand that we need to be able to develop the land that we have, no question there. I do have concerns about making a bunch of accommodations without, at just basically a good faith. Because how do we know, for example, the common space, it's required in a cluster development, correct? But it's only in phase 2. And so there's no common space included in phase 1.
Okay, that common space, as phase 1 is going on, has to be cleared and grubbed and designed and laid out. Now, this common space, if you want to do a site walk, I can show you. It's an outcrop of ledge just beyond the cul-de-sac. And there's a little set of steps we'd have to get up there. Gardens, just a common walking trail, common planting areas. That is part of phase 1, because when I sell a lot in a cluster development, they're titled common area, which is the cul-de-sac once the phase 2 is done, but it is that Central Park area with the trails. That has to be part of it. And I don't have a lot of cost or work up there. To take this half-acre parcel, clear it, grub it, landscape it, plant some, put some bark, some planters, picnic table with a roof cover on it, that's the extent of my work. Not a big deal to do that in phase 1.
Okay. I'm looking at the map, and that's included in the phase 2, right?
Yeah.
So that I was asking that question.
Keep in mind that as we start phase 1, immediately I'm working on phase 2, because the foundation that we dug on lot 1, that extra dirt has to be hauled off site. No, we're going to recycle it, bring it down the road, because at station 9 I need 3 feet of fill. Let's devegetate the area, put a foot of fill in there, and pack it down. So we're constantly working on this site, recycling fill, screening resaving loam, recycling the gravel that I already put in the road coming in. We've got horizontal and vertical curves in these roads, and these all have to be right on that design. So it's not like we're just going to do this one phase 1 and not, we are building the road beyond.
So then, to me, that sounds like you should go through the DEP process if you're going to be working on the whole thing.
Right.
And make sure that it's feasible and the draining is correct and all of that to begin with.
Okay.
And I have something to say too. And this is, of course, no reflection on you. I've known you for a long time. But I feel like these procedures are in place to prevent things from going awry. So it's not like Waterville doesn't have these rules to make things difficult. It has it to protect the people who live here, right? So one of the things that comes to mind is it's very expensive to build roads right now. What if that cost triples over the next year, and you've only gone through the 2 or 3 stages prior to actually paving the road, and then it becomes more cost prohibitive, and then what's to prevent you from not finishing the project? It's a private road. It's going to be transferred to public if you get there, right?
Okay.
So what's
good question. You don't start a project like this without any resources. I have a bank that's giving me $400,000, and I need $385 to do the roads in phase 1. I have the money to completely do the roads, pave them, and be done. The revenue off the home sales and the home construction and the lot sales is to look ahead at phase 2 and phase 3. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm coming here and I don't have the money, so I might stick people with houses with no paved driveways. When they buy a lot off me, that includes loamed and seeded, paved and done. So the house and everything is done. Again, I have been fully financed, more than fully financed, beyond what I claim my cost will be to complete the roads in phase 1. I have not started a project in Waterville that I haven't finished yet. If you take a ride out to Streamview Drive, you'd see that. Where is Waterville at risk? Where are my customers at risk? Because when I build them a home, they only pay for the portion that is completed, like on a normal construction loan with a bank. So if I'm building a home for $300,000 for a customer, and that $300,000 includes loam and seed and landscaping, paved driveways and paved walks and the whole thing, he doesn't even pay for that contract until it's completed. They pay in phases. Phase 1 is, okay, the foundation. Foundation's in, here's my invoice. Okay, frame shell. Here's the frame shell invoice. Very good, it's completed. So like in a construction loan, you pay for things after you get them, after it's completed. That's a normal bank process in a construction loan. So my customers aren't going to get stuck without an unpaved driveway, for example, because
Without an unpaved driveway?
that is correct. And the city of Waterville isn't going to get stuck with an unpaved road because, again, there's $385,000 worth of road standing right there. I have $400,000 sitting in an account on a line of credit for City View Estates right now. It's not a problem. So, and again, where is Waterville? My customers were the only ones that could be at risk, but by deed, I'm telling them what I'm going to do on that road construction in that common area. By deed, that's what they're receiving when they buy lot 1 or 2 or 3. So I hear your concerns. It has happened in Waterville before. Forest Park, maybe, one of those. All the projects that I've done, all the projects, I'm the 4th generation. My kids are the 5th. And my grandfather built Matthews Avenue, Violet Avenue, and Cool Street. And I'm sure a lot of that was on a handshake. And yes, sir, I'll get that done. So if there's a concern from anybody in this room tonight that I'm not going to complete what I started, then you don't know me yet.
Well, there's no doubt that I know you. I think I've known you for about 35 years, maybe 40.
Correct.
But, but this plan was written and originally proposed to the planning board in 2000, right?
The cluster development was 2011.
2011.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And that cluster development, following this ordinance, I had 12 months to start and 24 months to complete. At that time, $6 million worth of road, and it just wasn't cost feasible.
Yeah.
By phasing a project, it starts to make it cost feasible. That's all.
Okay. I think that there are other things that would be of concern. Like, it's not even, and I hate to even mention something like this, but if you decided to leave Maine, or if something bad happened to you, Kevin, which would make me very sad, you know, I think that the reason why things happen in a certain order is to guarantee that they get done. And it's not a question of your, you know, trustworthiness or your ability to carry out your promises. It's just sometimes things happen, right? So these rules are in place to ensure that this road is built, right, Ann? Right. So I think that that's where you're going to have people on this board have some concern.
And do you understand that the road will be completely built and all the infrastructure before I ask the city for the first building permit? So if your concern is that the road may never get built, you may never hear from me again, because the road is completely built in phase 1 before I ask for the first building permit. Because how can I get it? Because
you have asked us to make an accommodation for it not to be up to city standards, correct?
paving.
You've asked for a waiver.
We're only talking about
So-
paving.
Just the paving.
We're just talking about paving. That is all.
I feel like that's a pretty big step in road construction.
The
But
final
I could
coat-
be wrong. I'm not an expert
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah. The paving for that project, phase one, is about $55,000. As I've said before, there's $385,000 worth of other work that's going to happen before we get to the paving. And I need the complete city street, gravel done, infrastructure complete, curb stops, shut-offs for the water, stubs for the sewer. I need everything done because I need that road to drive a concrete truck down to pour the first foundation.
Yep,
Okay, so the road has to be done to town standards, inspected by the city engineer before I need the first building permit. Has to be. I can't drive in a field with construction equipment to build houses.
I guess I'm confused then. Why are we asking for a waiver of the road?
We're only asking for the waiver against 10-8 that the road isn't paved yet because it says to town, completed to town standards. Okay.
I thought there was also a request for saying you could, basically for this project, there could be 7 homes on a private road.
Well,
That was that was the request I heard.
and that's true. And we're
Okay.
trying to call it a private road temporarily, but then we're
Right.
going to admit that it's a public road. So I'm just weaseling through the ordinance to see where does it fit. In other words, your private road ordinance says maximum 3 homes. I don't know why. If that said maximum of 8 homes, because it's a private road, but again, I want to build the town standards. I want these people to be on a city street. I want these people to see the rubbish truck come down the street, okay? And that's part of being in a city street community in a cluster development.
So from what you just said, until it becomes a city street, they would not have garbage pickup.
That is correct. What happens is, if I build a gravel road to city standards, I just haven't paved it yet. I start building the first home or two. I plow roads, so I will plow, maintain the roads if it's gravel. Within a year or two, it will have base coat paving. I still plow it until the city takes it over. And they've even had further discussions with the city engineer that the first phase dead ends. And if it's more convenient, I'll plow the plowed road because I have contracts with plow guys to plow all those individual driveways and shovel their walks. So if I got to drive down the road to plow a driveway, I might as well drop the plow. So I don't have a problem doing not only the maintenance, but the repair, upkeep, until final paving, until that completes the requirement from Waterville, final paving. Then and only then do we turn it over to the city of Waterville. And that, again, comes probably when the cul-de-sac is completely done. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. It really makes me go back to, I think that we should be getting the opinion of the city solicitor.
Yeah. It's not within our.
And I would also, just so you're aware, the 20th of this month is the next housing committee meeting. It's all the information's available on the city's website. Yeah, I would. You are the second developer to talk about how expensive it is to build roads in subdivisions. So it does make me think that maybe somebody should be talking about this and bringing and making potentially a recommendation to city council. I would just want to get the opinion of the city solicitor and hear from the housing committee, and obviously I think we'd need to have a public hearing on it. So
I have my hand up. I'm not sure if you can see it because
I
of the.
can't, Bruce. I'm trying. Can you tell me?
That's what I figured.
Yeah. Could we unshare the screen, please? Thank you. Yes, Bruce.
Thanks. And I had a good chat today with Kevin, so I appreciate that, that you took my call, returned it. That way I don't have to ask quite as many questions tonight. I was very impressed with the photo you had of the design of the house. That's very, and I do, as Samantha already mentioned too, there's no doubt there's a big housing crunch housing need in the area, in all areas of Maine. In fact, that's why at the state level, we passed a bill, a bipartisan bill, LD 203, put in by the Speaker of the House, de facto, and I think it was to try to make accommodations, you know, because there are a lot of roadblocks. And I think that bill statewide is going to be a help. I think at the city level, we should try to do as much as we can. And I don't mean that we just rubber stamp the first thing that comes in, but I do think we have a tendency to try to put up roadblocks. I think we should be as accommodating as possible and not say, no, you can't do this. It should be, well, how can we do it? Let's address those concerns. You had 3 issues that, to me, they seem relatively, they seem doable. I think that we should be able to address those and not get off on too many other areas. But I think they're reasonable requests. And, you know, if we don't do it, there are other towns that are much more accommodating. I saw an article today that Auburn, their motto is, instead of not in my backyard, their motto is yes in my backyard. So I think we really need to do as much as we can to support this project. And, you know, I understand it's challenging for the developer. So, but again, I understand we need to, you know, cross the T's, dot the I's, but let's address the issues and not get into the weeds, so to speak. I would ask, I have a couple more things. So phase 1, the timing, you know, let's say best case, what would phase 1 be, you know, time-wise? Kevin,
We're asking for phase 1 up to 60 months.
Okay. And, you know, and I guess some people would be concerned because you came so many years ago, but we know it's not quite as simple. It seems that from our standpoint, like, why isn't this happening? But we know there's a lot of things to take into consideration, financing being one. But you have, did you say something about a project in Fairfield with similar housing as this?
Yes, I got approved a cluster development in Fairfield for 6 units. Obviously, their ordinance is completely different. They passed that with no exception because it did meet the timelines and the private road ordinance and everything that was talked about. That was all paved completely on schedule. And between the time that I came here in 2011 to today to ask to build a road in Waterville, I've built 3 roads in Belgrade. I built a half a mile of city street in Winslow last year. I've built structures all over the place. But those towns, you can go, their ordinance is just easier to go.
Well, we're talking about our ordinance, though. So I want to
I want to
keep our
follow up on
conversation
that.
focused on our city.
Yeah.
It's getting late tonight, and I think we still
Right.
have people from the public that might want to comment. We haven't even heard from all of our planning board members. So I'd like to focus our
Okay.
conversation, please.
So, but I do think it's important for us to know that Kevin does have a good track record, even though this project has been years.
I don't
I don't think anybody's
anybody
questioning
is-
that.
is
Nobody's
questioning
questioning that. Okay, so we
I'm
can
not
stop
saying
talking about
anybody's
it.
I'm not saying anybody's questioning it. And this is not just for us. Remember, this is for the public too, so that they realize, you know, the track record here. So that's my reason. I'm not saying anybody's, you know, don't read into it too much, but I just wanted to mention that we know that he's done similar projects. Other towns are very open to this. We have a housing need in this area. And again, I know we have to do our due diligence, but let's just, you know, address the issues. Maybe we could look at the document we got. I don't know if that was just today. It says City View Estates Development Plan. Could we look at that and go through that? Those are the
If
things that
there's
he's
something
asking
in that
for,
you'd like to
correct?
bring up, you're more than welcome to bring that up. I don't think we need to go line
Could we
to line.
bring that up on the screen so we can look at it?
I want to get to
Together.
Hillary's question first, please.
Yeah, after that. No problem. Thank you.
Well, I just have some questions for Bruce. Bruce, I'd love for you to clarify a couple of your points. You just said you think we need to be more accommodating and not get into the weeds. So I'm confused. Are you suggesting that we should ignore our city ordinances and we shouldn't check with our city solicitor on these things?
No, I did not say that.
No, I'm asking if you're suggesting that we shouldn't.
What are we asking the city solicitor, I guess would be my question.
Well, we have these ordinances for a reason. So I think that David was suggesting that we should maybe check in with him to sort of,
Yeah.
check that, that they're there for a reason, that we're not gonna.
Well, and Kevin mentioned some legal documents that would be protecting the purchasers of these homes.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, so
Right.
I would appreciate the city's
I did not.
attorney.
Okay.
I did not. Right, thank you. I
Hillary
didn't say
has
that
the
we
floor.
should not check with the city solicitor.
Okay,
Right,
Hillary
no,
has
I-
the floor.
And so,
Right.
well, you
no,
asked me a question, right? You wanted me to
Right. No,
clarify.
I guess, no, that's what I'm
So,
saying. I'm
I
saying when
did
you
not
said we
say that
shouldn't.
we should not talk
Can
to
we
the
please
city
not get
solicitor.
into-
I wasn't sure what it was
Excuse
for.
me?
Right.
Can we please not get into a back and forth argument? Hillary has the floor. I would like to just hear Hillary's questions and concerns, please.
Okay.
And she asked
No,
me some
I-
questions,
Yeah, no,
correct?
I'm
Thank
asking
you.
for clarification of what he meant when he said not get into the weeds. And then you also suggested in terms of his track record, and again, I'm new to the planning board, but I think it's a mistake to suggest that if we have someone brand new come before the planning board, that we give preferential treatment to people that we know versus someone that we don't know. I think that it's really important that we be impartial and that everyone who brings a proposal to us, that we look at these proposals as brand new proposals. And I think it's great if we know people and we can say that we trust people, but I don't think that we give preferential treatment because of track records. I think it's really important to just look at the proposals as they come to us. And I think what Cassie said was really great, that she knows him and she trusts him. It has nothing to do with trust. That if there are concerns and God forbid something happens, she just wants to make sure that everything's in place, so that not that anyone feels that the planning board would ever give anyone preferential treatment because we know someone. And I want to make sure that that's not what you were suggesting.
No, of course not. In fact, it's very common for us to ask developers about other projects.
Right.
We do that on a regular basis.
Right.
And that's what I was doing.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think I appreciate all of the concerns and the frustrations. And I think it's totally legitimate to say, if this is something that's really getting people bogged down and slowing down projects, that maybe this is something that we need to consider. And as David said, that there's a process for reconsideration and to have a public hearing to say, maybe we need to make a recommendation to the city to reconsider the ordinances. But there are two different things going on. And I just wanted to clarify a few things. Thank you so much.
Are there any comments from people in the public?
We don't have any hands raised online.
I would like to mention, I have talked to a couple of the abutters who have raised some concerns about this project. Most of those residents are on the Country Way. And I mean, if we are, I'm looking at a Google Earth image of this area, and this would substantially change their backyards, right? And I know we're saying not in my backyard and all of that, and I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate the need for development, and I can appreciate that we are trying to find creative ways to solve housing issues. I have an appreciation for all of that. I also have an appreciation for the people that have been living in some of these homes and for a very long time, and how that might change their neighborhoods and how we should also be aware of their concerns. I think that we will need to address buffers when we talk about that and how that impacts people. There's a lot of concerns about drainage, which we've gone over. I think we've had some really good conversations, and I don't think that we're getting into the weeds or we're trying to bog anything down. I think we want to make sure that we're doing things correctly here, and that we don't end up with problems down the road, because this planning board's responsibility to the citizens of this city is that we follow the ordinances, that we are developing properly, and that we are developing for the future. And I want to make sure that we're not getting bogged down in a he said, she said, or somebody's reputation over this and that. We're arguing over things when we have a plan in front of us and we need to talk about how it fits into our ordinances and our city, because they're there for a reason. I can appreciate that other towns have different ordinances. I very much understand that. And other towns have different needs. And so their ordinances are going to be different. So with that being said, if there's nothing else from the public, I think
Can
we
I
can wrap
speak to
up.
that for just a second, too?
Yeah, sure.
I had another question.
Okay,
too.
well, Cassie also does, so.
Yep. Sorry, Bruce, I
Excellent,
was
sure.
talking. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? All right,
Yep.
great. So I would just like to say that I've only been on this planning board for a few months, right? For 6 months or so. But since I've been here, I've seen a lot of really important Waterville and Fairfield area people like Dick Jigger. We make them all answer questions like this. So I don't think that we should even be thinking about reputation necessarily, unless there's a bad reputation, then of course we should. But I'm going into this assuming that we wouldn't even have to ask those questions, like worry about your reputation. So I think that it's really important to understand that like ordinances exist and laws exist to protect a process, and we're just trying to follow the process. And I would like to respect that process, especially since there are some questions about legality, and that Bill Lee is a pretty good resource, and we should use him. And it's not going to delay this process very much to loop him in, maybe loop in the housing committee, right? So I'm not really sure if it's even worth us continuing this conversation in the way that we're continuing it, because it's not productive. Like, it's much easier to just loop Bill in, maybe postpone this until the next meeting.
Well, we don't vote on tonight anyways.
Right,
It's just an
so-
opportunity to give feedback. And-
Right, so that's the feedback. I think we need to talk to Bill, and maybe Bruce agrees or disagrees, but why don't you go ahead?
Bruce?
Sure, thank you. And I wasn't sure what we wanted to ask, Mr. Lee, and I'm fine with that. I mean, and I don't think we're necessarily arguing. See, my take is a little different. We're having a good, I feel it's a good, respectful debate where we may have some different views on this. And I think that's okay. The last time anyway, I really think it's healthy to have opposing views on things. So that's where I'm coming from. And I'm not saying we ram this through, but I just think that, I raised some questions. Talking to Kevin today was helpful for me. I drove by the area. That was helpful as well. So I'd like to ask Ann. So again, I think it's good that we have some healthy discussion on this. And it's no way to downplay anything. And you mentioned, Cassie, that if somebody has a bad reputation, we want to talk about it. I think we need to talk about the good and the bad when somebody comes. So did anybody get notified on this at this point? I guess that would be the question I wanted to ask for Ann.
Yes, I sent out letters to abutters, and there was a legal notice in the newspaper.
Okay, and nobody's here tonight. So, and I'm not saying that, people still, Samantha obviously said people were concerned, and that's good. They should be contacting us. That's the process. But I wasn't sure. So that's good clarification. Thank you, Ann, for that. Yeah, thanks.
David?
Kevin, I am about to make a motion to table this to either August 9th or August 23rd. Which would you prefer?
Makes no difference.
Okay. Make a motion to table this until August 9th.
Second. Oh, sorry, roll call. Dave,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom,
Yes.
Cassie,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Okay.
And Kevin, I do want to say I agree that this does need to be addressed, the cost of building roads and stuff like that. So I hope that it does get resolved, because we do need development in Waterville. So,
I think he's trying to encourage you to discuss some of this with the housing committee, because
Yes.
you would have valuable feedback. No, right. I think he is saying, in addition to what we're dealing with here, he believes that you would offer valuable feedback to the housing committee.
Very much
So if
so.
you're interested in that would be great.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any opposition? All right,